Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. Illegally park and block driveways in our neighborhood and do it constantly while throwing a party? Expect what's coming. 2 years ago, a new family moved into our quiet little neighborhood, and they began their reign of terror. We've lived here for over 20 years in this neighborhood, and except for these past 2 years, it's been wonderful. I love our neighbors, except this family. This just family sucks. I'm not even sure where to begin. They are loud, they are dirty, and they are obnoxious. Their dog barks at all hours. They constantly yell at each other, they throw parties well into the night, and they steal my older neighbor's paper. They actually trained the rat wheeler to fetch the neighbor's paper. Impressive, but wrong. They throw their dog's poop into other yards. So much. They even cut my 80-something-year-old neighbor's prized roses for themselves. Who does that? There are about 100 issues I could write about and how we've all dealt with them, but this past weekend was my own glorious take on it all. Oh, and yes, we tried talking to them. We tried inviting them over. We've done nice things for them, and all we've expected is that they act like decent neighbors. And that's never happened. In our neighborhood, parking is scarce. Most of these homes are classic 1950s with single-lane driveways, and parking is limited even on the street. There is a busy road a few blocks away that has a great nightlife and popular restaurants, which means that at times, especially on the weekends, the street can fill up. This family has 4 drivers and 5 vehicles, with only enough space for 2 in their driveway at a time. Constantly, they will park and leave their vehicles for days and sometimes weeks in front of other people's homes. Sometimes leaving their driveway empty for no reason, with all of their cars parked on the road. I kinda believe that in itself isn't that big of a deal, except for how and when they would do it. They were intentional about it all. They would do so to try to cause the most grief with everyone, and this went on for months. A complete screw you to everyone. After months of this and no one retaliating or giving them the satisfaction of how mad we all are, they started parking deliberately in ways to make it difficult to get out of our driveways. I had to have my husband come out most mornings to guide me so I wouldn't hit their car as I backed out of my own driveway. There were also times where they squeezed my neighbor's car on the street to where they couldn't get out. And finally, an older retired neighbor goes down to the city/police station and inquires about what to do. They found a code or law stating that so much space from the sides of driveways and yada 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 is required. So we come home one night to freshly painted yellow curbs outlining every house surrounding this one. A few weeks ago, my husband's car broke down and he had to get towed. On his way back, he starts talking with the tow truck driver about these jerk neighbors and their cars. And he tells my husband that if these cars are parking illegally, we should call the non-emergency line, and if they receive a ticket, to call him and he can tow them at the owner's expense. It's the law. My husband and him keep talking and even meet up for a beer a few nights later. They are big fans of the Blazers. Rip City. He's a really good guy. About a month ago, we met a couple in our fair city and it just so happens that the husband is an officer. We were already planning on meeting that Friday night, and when we met, I brought the jerk neighbors and their parking. He says that he will drive through on his shift if he gets time, and if he sees them parked in the yellow, he has no problem ticketing them. Great. He also gets some of his friends to check it out when they have time to. Fantastic. We've been calling almost daily at this point about their cars parked illegally, but nothing was happening. That Saturday night he sent me a text saying he ticketed 3 cars. I missed that text. So no tow truck. But I kinda figured with 3 tickets they would get the idea. They didn't. Off and on all week it was the same. This past Saturday, the teenage son threw a party and everyone, I mean every single one of their guests and them, parked in the yellow of someone's driveway, or blocked someone out altogether. Obviously, the little jerk told all of his friends to block our driveways or block our cars in. I sent a text to our officer friend who told me to call the non-emergency line and he'd be the one to look into it. But I'm scheming bigger. I call up the tow truck driver and tell him that there are at least 15 cars parked illegally, and all are about to receive parking tickets for blocking driveways and cars. I let him know that we are friends with an officer, and he and I scheme a little further. We have a solid plan. I call our officer friend back and tell him our plan, and I also mention that the party is likely going to be filled with underage drinkers. Now I hate busting parties, but I make exceptions for the young ones, and especially little underage drinking and driving ones. And he and I finalize a plan. Here is how it all went down. Officer and 3 of his partners go through the neighborhood citing all of the cars. Meanwhile, our tow truck driver friend has assembled a group of drivers at a nearby grocery store parking lot. My husband and I made an anonymous call about a possible underage party. The tow truck drivers start at the ends of our street grabbing the cars as quickly as possible. A few alarms here and there, but no way could they hear it in the party. When they approach the house, my husband makes an anonymous call about an underage party in our neighborhood. Conveniently, our officer friend just so happens to be still there. So he and his partner go over to the house to check on it. As they knock on the door, lights go out. Music shuts off and the house goes quiet. At this moment, the tow trucks come in and are now towing the remaining 5 cars right from in front of their home. I just wish I could see the kids' faces inside as they are all having a dilemma about what to do. Do they go out and bust themselves for underage drinking and try to stop their cars from being towed? Or do they just sit and bite the bullet and watch $200 plus go down the drain? On Sunday, they had 3 cars returned from being towed, and all 3 were parked just shy of the yellow lines. I will call this a win. My husband and a couple of neighbors also spent Sunday putting up some new cameras. They were all very giddy and loud about it. Something about all the lights and police on Saturday made them nervous. Edit. For the threats against me for busting the underage party, how did you skip over as they knock on the door, lights go out, music shuts off, and the house goes quiet? Nothing happened to the kids at the party other than them watching their cars get towed. In America, the police cannot just go into a home without a warrant. If the kids aren't opening their door or inviting the officers in, there is nothing the police can do other than stand outside. Next story. Dealing with an entitled neighbor. We got a call to a house where there were a bariatric patient who had fallen. The patient was morbidly obese and weighed around 30 stones, 420 pounds. This story isn't really about them though. There are many reasons people get to this size, and I've never judged, only helped. No, the problem here was a really arrogant neighbor we had come across before. And boy, was this chap so judgmental. Our patient had a car and had a disabled parking permit. They also had a council-designated disabled parking spot outside their home, which the neighbor kept parking in. There have been a number of letters from the council regarding this, and a number of parking fines just served to annoy this chap even more. On the day of the story, I took the call that the patient had fallen and we went to the house. Sure enough, the neighbor was not only parked in a disabled spot, but had parked a second car blocking access to the patient's driveway. I assessed the patient and suspected they had a broken hip, so needed to go in. I sent my colleague round to the neighbor to ask them to move the cars, and when they came back, I was told the neighbor had just told my colleague to do one. No problem. Time to get the message home. I radioed through to our control center and asked for the fire service and police. We needed the fire service to help lift the guy and the police to do a little parking control. The fire service were the first to arrive, and I spoke to the crew commander to let them know what the situation was. A fireman went to the house to ask the neighbor to move the car and was told the same as my colleague. The message was relayed back and the watch commander just asked me one question. Is the patient's life at risk? And it was time our thoughtless neighbor got the message. My answer was yes. There is equipment I need to get into the house, and the driveway is blocked, preventing me doing so. The watch commander told the fire truck driver to move those vehicles. It was really satisfying to see both vehicles being pushed down the road by the fire service, and the look on the neighbor's face as he came out spitting and screaming was well worth seeing. His complaints to the police fell on deaf ears. They were well aware of his history of obstruction, and my clinical assessment that the patient's life was in danger was more than enough justification for the vehicles to be moved. This really did bring a smile to their faces as we wheeled them out. Next story. My dad's ultimate revenge on an entitled family. Backstory. My dad is a high school assistant principal. It is currently his first year at a new school, and it's a much better school than the last one he was at, which was overpopulated, drug-filled, and many of the students there had to have free or reduced lunches. There were fights almost every week, and my dad had to suspend kids almost every day. His new school is much better. It was just 2 incidents all year. One was an autistic kid who had an episode, and the one I'm about to tell you find Redditors about. The original incident took place about 2 months ago. I'm not 100% sure what started it, but either the bus driver accidentally bumped into the entitled girl while he was dropping her off, or he told her off for saying something rude. But she got mad and texted her entitled mom about it. The entitled mom came out of her home and started yelling at him, so he just drove off. The next morning, the bus driver went to pick up the entitled girl, but when he got to her driveway, she wasn't there. The entitled mom, the entitled brother, and the sister were there. He opened the door to ask where the entitled girl was, and that's when all 3 of them boarded the bus. The entitled girl is a junior, I think. Her older brother was around 22, and her older sister was in college. These people were all adults, and all 3 of them started screaming at the poor bus driver, threatening him and calling him slurs and telling him off. The rest of the kids on the bus were expectedly scared. The moment the 3 of them got off the bus driver sped away. The one thing the entitled family forgot to think about was the fact that there are 4 HD cameras equipped with audio sensors on every bus in our county, and they caught everything. The poor dude got the rest of the kids to school and went straight to the front office. My dad was mad. He got the video feed from the bus, called his school cop who called some other cops, and had the entitled mother arrested for malicious harassment, intimidation, trespassing, and a few other things. My dad's principal let my dad have control over the whole situation because he knows my dad does not mess around with these kind of things. So my dad helped the bus driver get some revenge. First, he had the entitled girl switch to a different bus route so she couldn't mess with the bus driver anymore. Then he had the entitled brother, the entitled sister, and the entitled mother permanently banned from the school grounds. And then he gave the bus driver a month of paid time off. Working with their lawyer, My dad got statements from most of the kids who were on the bus, and they decided to press charges against only the entitled mother and brother, who had apparently been in the middle of a 6-month probationary period for a different crime. So he was essentially guaranteed jail time. Going into the trial 6 weeks ago, nobody expected the entitled mother to get any more jail time than a week of that. My dad, his principal, and the school cop were all in the courthouse in case they needed to be called as witnesses, but they were not. Their lawyer made his remarks, and the entitled mother lawyer just tried to get her sentence reduced. He knew they were going to lose, and the videos weren't even shown to the judge because there was so much other evidence. But the judge surprised everyone when he gave the entitled mother a 30-day sentence. He made it very clear to her that she had threatened the life of a man, endangered kids, and trespassed on school property for no reason besides that the bus driver had told off the entitled girl, and that she should be punished accordingly. My dad and his principal were trying not to cheer, but that wasn't even the best part. The entitled brother skipped his trial. They were back-to-back trials, so there is no way he could have forgotten. The judge immediately issued a bench warrant for his arrest. He was caught the next day in the entitled mother's house, and when brought in front of the judge, he was given a year in prison for breaking his probation, skipping his trial, and for the same charges as his mother. If that isn't pro-revenge, I don't know what is. As for the entitled girl, she switched schools. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.